We got some names on the trade block, folks. And I wanted to do a little bit of a double dip in the double V's right here. Because today we're talking about Vancouver, and we're also talking about the Vegas Golden Knights. Because both of these teams have made certain players available, reportedly. And I thought it'd be a nice idea to just go out there and talk about both of them. So one of them is really obvious, another is like kind of new, so I did think that it was fairly appropriate to combine these two in a video together. Let's start out with the more obvious, not surprising, and absolutely expected trade update in regards to the Vancouver Canucks. It comes to us in the form of yesterday's Rick Dhaliwal hit on Halford and Brough earlier on Sportsnet 650. As always, big shout out over to Canucks News Summaries, who went out there and summarized what it was that Dhaliwal said. But I wanted to go over one particular name that was highlighted on this radio hit, and how the Vancouver Canucks obviously have to move Arturs Silovs. Dhaliwal says here that the value of Silovs is probably a 4th or a 5th round pick. He characterizes moving Silovs as a favor to the goalie to get him some playing time, and it will happen sometime over the summer. Now let's just say right off the bat here, Arturs Silovs going for a 4th or a 5th round pick, I'm honestly surprised that that price is not a little bit higher, mostly because I think of Arturs Silovs as a potential NHL backup at this stage. The answer to one NHL team's goaltending woes. A name that could potentially be super important heading into next season. Thing is, goaltending around the NHL, it's kind of thin. And with teams potentially having their backs up against the wall with subpar starters or subpar backups or subpar both, Arturs Silovs, as the potential that he has, I would assume would be a little bit more highly sought after compared to just a 4th or a 5th round pick. Although I will say, too, the argument exists that Silovs did have a really up and down NHL stint. Yes, he was in the playoffs last year, yes, he was clutch, yes, he was making headlines, but then the season after, oh, he was so bad. Arturs Silovs starting out the 24-25 season with Vancouver was in a world of his own in terms of being bad. Literally one of the best at being bad, one of the worst goaltenders, statistically speaking, in the National Hockey League for 24-25. So to turn that into a trade profile where it's like, yeah, the guy's worth a draft pick now, it actually does seem kind of miraculous, but then you consider just how much weight was being put into his Calder Cup stint where he was a dominant force and he was the MVP in the playoffs for Abbotsford and he did all these things and there was so much to like out of Silovs. If NHL teams are going to start looking at that and be like, hey, he's a 24-year-old dude and he just led his team to a Calder Cup championship, that's impressive. We want to give that guy a shot. I would assume if they're going from a more optimistic viewpoint, they would probably be willing to give more than a 4th or a 5th round pick for Arturs Silovs. But at the same time, I think if the Canucks held on a little bit longer, if they upped their price a little bit more, if they just went further down the, hey, we don't need to trade this guy, but if you really make it worthwhile for us, we will, type of deal, then maybe there is a world where Arturs Silovs gets a little bit more than just a 4th or a 5th. But then again, you can't never be too sure about these things, and I do subscribe to the idea that the Vancouver Canucks kind of owe it to Arturs Silovs at this point, like, hey, you were super good for us in the playoffs last year. You exploded out of nowhere. You took over the net, and you had a shutout to eliminate Nashville in Game 6. That was crazy. You also helped our Abbotsford team win the championship, and you were a stud there. We owe it to you to do right by you and give you that opportunity to play at the National Hockey League level. And it's going to come with some other team, not us, because we got Demko, we got Lankinen, we got some other dudes in the Abbotsford system as well. It's just kind of unfair for you to stay in that spot. Also, he's eligible for waivers, so he would probably get claimed. Canucks don't want to roll with a triple goalie rotation in the 25-26 season, most likely, so it's just not time for Arturs Silovs anymore. Now, let's shift gears over to another V team and talk about the Vegas Golden Knights, because on David Pagnotta's latest article, Blues, Sharks among teams eyeing Bowen Byram, there was a very interesting tidbit of info that I wanted to dive into over here. Let's dive into what David Pagnotta writes about in regards to the Golden Knights. Vegas is trying to find the new home for D-man Ben Hutton, who is in the final year of his contract. Now, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about a guy who is only making $975,000 against the cap for one more season. He's 32 years old, a 6'3", 201 left-handed defenseman, and Ben Hutton is a guy who will live in infamy for Vancouver Canucks fans, because he was pretty much the only guy that the Vancouver Canucks took in the 2012 NHL Entry Draft that actually had a significant impact with the Vancouver Canucks. 2012 is yet another one of these years where the Vancouver Canucks came away with almost nothing from the draft. Brendan Gaunce was never really a full-time Vancouver Canuck. Alexandre Mallet didn't become anything. Ben Hutton did. And then you have Wes Myron and Matthew Beattie, who also didn't do anything for the Vancouver Canucks either. Ben Hutton is interesting because there was a period of his career where he actually was really highly touted. This was because after finishing up his NCAA career with the University of Maine Black Bears, Ben Hutton signed after his junior year, played in the Utica Comets system, and then was good enough in the 2015-16 season to make the team out of camp. He was a rookie, fresh out of the NCAA. Again, he was a fifth-round guy, and there were no expectations for this guy to make an impact in the way that he did. He made the Vancouver Canucks. He won the award, I think, for the best defenseman, something like that, on Vancouver. And a lot of fans were saying, hey, this guy could be a really stable top 4, top 3 caliber defenseman if he continues going down this path. And unfortunately for Hutton, injuries did slow him down a little bit throughout the course of the next few years, and in that 2017-18 season, the guy was absolutely cheeks. He had 6 points in 61 games. He did not look himself. He was bad. Him playing with, I don't know, was there, Lucas Spiza in there? I forgot. Kind of shut down that area of my memory when it comes to Vancouver Canucks-related hockey. But Ben Hutton then found himself on a few different teams after that. LA, Anaheim, Toronto, and then he joined the Vegas Golden Knights, and then he won a Stanley Cup. Now, he didn't play all of the games, but he was still on the team, and he had... did he have his name on the cup? I don't remember, but still, Ben Hutton won the cup, he brought it to his hometown, and he stayed with Vegas for the next 2 seasons after that. Of course, he has never eclipsed his 25 points in 75 games in his very first Vancouver Canucks season 10 years ago, but he is now on the trade block as the Vegas Golden Knights are looking to free up some salary cap space and move things around on D. I don't think the Ben Hutton trade update is more so them trying to do him a favor like Vancouver is doing for Arturs Silovs, but it does seem more like Vegas is just trying to find a new home for a guy whose contract is expiring. With that in mind, though, I honestly don't think Ben Hutton is that bad. I mean, he has found a way to stay in the National Hockey League the next few years after his Vancouver days, so certainly an NHL caliber guy. It's just a matter of where you put him in the lineup. Do you play this guy 10 minutes a night, essentially? Do you reach him up to 15? There were some 19-minute games in there this previous year. He only had 11 games played after all, too. He was out for a good chunk of time. So Ben Hutton, of course, not really the most reliable and deployable guy, but still a guy who was good enough to play some extra minutes if you need somebody there. With that in mind, though, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think any of your favorite teams would be interested in these guys, Arturs Silovs or Ben Hutton? What are your thoughts on the way these guys have played, and what are your thoughts on the trade update here? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9, and bye.